Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, and today is a very exciting day as we can finally discuss the Moza products that are now available for purchase. So we are obviously today starting out with the Moza AB210 force feedback base and yoke system. This thing is absolutely phenomenal and I cannot wait to give you guys all the details. Today we're also going to be showcasing a new force feedback shifter as well as the MTP throttle from Moza. But today, this guy right here is the star of the show, and oh my gosh, is it amazing. Stick around.
If you are interested in any of my tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, or simply interested in supporting the channel, consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides as well as any future guides that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below.
OverKillSimulations, watch us as we fly.
All right, folks, so as we get into it, the first thing I want to point out is I apologize for the audio if my microphone is crappy. Unfortunately, my primary mic has died over the weekend, so I have to get a new one. Second thing, the damage to the box, don't sweat that. That was actually me, unfortunately, when I was moving things around in my closet. Now, the unboxing of this is very, very simple. I'm more or less going to let you guys just sort of watch it while I talk about a few things as we get into it. So how this review is going to go is we're going to go through the unboxing process, go through the assembly process, then I'm going to attach it to my DOF Reality H3 motion platform, and then we'll do a flight test. After the flight test, I will go over the software, and after the software, we'll talk about the pricing. So I'm leaving the best part to the end, of course, the pricing. But anyways, trust me, it's not as bad as you think. Stick around. So first off, as we start getting into it, you guys, I cannot express the thunderous storm that Moza is bringing to the flight sim community. You guys are going to be really, really impressed with a lot of the equipment that's coming around the corner here that hasn't even been discussed yet. But as far as the boxing goes, as you guys can see, it's packaged very, very well. I don't think I've ever seen Moza package anything that was poor, so that's why I'm not really focusing this conversation on the packaging. The unit is approximately 9 inches wide by about 15 inches long. It's fairly comfortable to set up in pretty much any environment. I will say its competitor right now that I could really bring up would be probably the CLS60. Now, they both have their pros and cons. I'm not going to make this a comparison, but if you guys have seen the CLS60 from FlightSim.com, this is slightly smaller on both dimensions, but they're both pretty big, hefty guys. Where this one does shine, however, is all of the other controls that come with it. We are not restricted to just a yoke. You also have a bunch of buttons, LED capabilities, and everything can be tweaked and modified in the software as well. The software, if you have ever used any of Moza's software, is incredibly friendly and very, very easy to navigate. So here it is, you guys. Look at this thing. It looks absolutely sharp as can be. Very, very awesome design, sleek design. And take a look at the first thing that I noticed when I unboxed this thing for the first time. As you guys, some of you may know, this is actually my second time doing a video on this. By the way, if you guys are interested in the first video, it is live as well. But you guys can see here, this is a modular handle, indicating that there are probably going to be, it's a fair speculation, this is pure speculation, but there are probably going to be multiple yoke options that will be able to attach this as it is using the quick clamp release system. You have your landing gear, you have a flap switch, you have a 5-position rotary, you have two 2x2 buttons for, like, I would guess autopilot, things like that, however you want to configure it, and then of course a bunch of switches. Now the switches, I will say it's interesting they went battery, fuel pump, and pitot. I personally would have gone battery, alternator, avionics, but that's just me. Now the beautiful part about these is that you can program them to do whatever you want them to do. They have done an absolutely wonderful job with the overall ergonomic design of this thing. It also has a power button down there in the bottom right, so it's very easy to disconnect right from the front of the unit, where most of it, for example, the R5 racing base, you disconnect it, you power it off from the back. Now, again, you guys can see it's approximately about 6 inches high, 5 or 6 inches high, give or take, 9 inches wide, and again, stressing that about 14 to 15 inches long. The exact dimensions are available in the documentation, but you guys will see how I've set it up. I created my own custom mount for the DOF Reality H3, which you guys will see here in a little bit. Now, again, stressing the beauty of it. It was very, very well designed. It's a very sleek design. The feet are rubber, so you don't have to worry about them necessarily damaging anything. And again, you guys can see all those ports in the back are for future coming peripherals, one of them which might already be available. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But there are things for throttle, rudder pedals, etc., and they could all link together, making a one cohesive unit. Now, as we get into the yoke here in just a second, you guys will see the yoke has its own features that make it almost a full unit all on its own. Again, the only thing that I wish that they would do is I wish that these companies would put more mounting brackets right in the center. Maybe make that row just one big long mounting option rather than sticking to the front and aft. It makes mounting it on things like my cockpit, for example, a little bit more difficult. It definitely poses some challenges when you're dealing with something this long. But with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at the yoke now. So once again, looking at the unit from the front, we're going to get the yoke out of the box. Same thing as before. The yoke is packaged very, very well. You guys can get a quick shot of it right here. There, you can see it's in a very, very thick foam. No, I didn't showcase much of it. Kind of did that on purpose. Again, once you've seen one, you've seen them all. I promise it is very, very secure inside that box. There's a very large foam piece that goes on top of it as it sits down into a large foam piece. But here she is in her beauty. This thing is phenomenal, extremely ergonomic, very strong plastic. You can see that you have autopilot mode buttons right in the front with multiple buttons down beneath it. The other thing that I want to say is that checklist panel is magnetic, giving you the option to create your own custom panels as well. There's that quick clamp release system that they also use for their steering wheels, making it very easy to remove the unit if you want, or at the very least stow the yoke. Again, I'm really hoping that this is an indicator that there is future yokes in development for further expansion of different yoke types. For example, of switching from commercial to general aviation and various private jets. So again, take a look at it. You have a mirrored configuration on both the left and right handles. You have two thumbsticks. These are joysticks, full axis, directional. Two mic switches is what I'm designating them as. Two four-way position hat switches with push button. The joysticks are push button as well. A bumper on each of the forward handles, as well as triggers on the forward handles. The triggers are also accessed, so you could use them for rudders if you want. I'm going to show you guys later on my flight simulation demonstration what I did. I used only this unit and a throttle to do the entire flight operation. Again, you guys can see those autopilot mode buttons that are very, very nice. They have a great tactile feel, and again, stressing that that checklist panel is magnetic, so you have the ability to create your own custom panels. Now, with that in mind, let's go ahead and get into the good part. Let's see this guy fly. So for our flight test today, we are in the M20 Mooney from Coronado. If you guys haven't been watching my channel for very long, I should say, you'll know this is one of my favorite aircraft. So what do I have set up here? I have the throttle, which we're going to be talking about in another video, down on the left-hand side, where I have a brake axis set to the thumbstick. And on this, I have my rudder being controlled by that right thumbstick. My whole purpose of doing it like this was to showcase the fact that this unit can be used again as a complete contained environment. You can use this without anything else necessary because of the way that the ergonomics are set, the mirrored left and right handles, flap and landing gear handles right there on the base. I'm trying to demonstrate here that you don't need anything else. Yes, of course, I would absolutely recommend rudder pedals over using a thumbstick, but I also wanted to showcase the possibilities for those who may be just getting into flight simulation, or again, those who may not have all the other peripherals and are trying to decide how they want to get into this. I will say that with the force feedback, the tension just as the engine was rolling was quite phenomenal. By the way, if you guys haven't seen it already, I'm sure you have. You can see there's the software up there in the left monitor with just some of the settings. We're going to go into further depth in the software in a little bit here, but I will tell you that it breaks down into jet, propeller, and rotor configurations as well. Now, I can't imagine flying a helicopter with this one. I really can't. And actually, I'm sorry. I might be thinking of the AB9 that has the helicopter configuration. We'll go back and check again. We're going to do a detailed review of the software in a minute. But the flight experience itself was phenomenal. Everything from revving up the engine to bringing the engine power back down, being able to, I will tell you right now, if you turn the low engine RPM vibration up, it will shake that thing right out of your hands. It's actually quite impressive. But one of the really cool aspects of this is as you start to power on, you feel the vibration in the yoke change from that low engine RPM, that sort of bumble, 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 bumble that you'll feel in your hands, to that smooth, high-pitched vibration that you would get. It's very similar to what you get when you stomp on the gas in your car. Forgive the bad runway activity here. Again, I am not used to using a thumbstick as my rudder, but you guys will see that I start to get the hang of it towards the end as we get close to rotation. I will also say that the wind was absolutely horrid here in Sedona. I probably should have paid more attention because I do believe I also took off with a nasty tailwind. I have that bad habit, you guys know I do. But here we go. I'm starting to smooth it out. I'm starting to get the hang of it here. But watch as the aircraft crabs as we take off. The tension that was available as I started to rotate back, the rotation was very intentional. And what I mean by that is that you had to really deliver the force. But with that being said, that force was not something that felt unrealistic to me. It just felt like you needed to be intentional with it. Like I said, it was something that you weren't just, it didn't feel sloppy. It didn't feel light. It didn't feel like there was anything there. And there's that wind starting to really beat the crap out of the aircraft. As the wind is sitting there pounding away at the plane, I'm feeling that in the yoke as well. I'm feeling little judders and jittles. Nothing crazy, nothing over dramatic. Now, also keep in mind that all of these settings that I'm discussing here, they're all tweakable in that center row there on the screen in the software. And actually all three of those menus, but the first left and right, or the left and center, are really specific to the propeller aircraft here. The left is more generalized for all configurations, and the center is for propeller. So as we start climbing out, the next thing that I want to talk about is the trim hat. In just a second here, you're going to see me bring my left hand up to the trim, and the trim is set to a hardware mode, meaning that as I trim, and we'll talk about this in the software, but as I trim, it's not necessarily trimming the aircraft as it is trimming the yoke itself. So this is one of the really cool aspects of force feedback when it comes to flight simulation, is that and just like you would in real life, okay, so as you're in real life, if you're feeling that you're constantly having to pull back on your stick or your yoke, you're going to trim until you feel that back pressure no longer being required in your wrist. You're going to start. So here we are starting to trim. So I actually felt the yoke come forward as I started to trim nose down a little bit. It was a really cool feeling. It was a really smooth. I literally felt the tension start to come off the yoke, and that was a really awesome feeling. Again, here we're getting between those mountains. I flew through there on purpose. I knew it was going to be a rough ride, and again, you can see that totally rocking here. Now, one of the things that I started doing here is I literally just started playing around with the software. I was just clicking random buttons, seeing what it would do, getting the feeling, and every single time I did, I felt the difference. Here is the general curvature on the yoke. Again, here's even more intensity settings that you can adjust on a global scale. Guys, there's so much configuration. That's the one thing that I will say. It's funny that this comes out today, because yesterday in my motion simulation video for the platform that we're using there, the DOF Reality, I was talking about how the thing about force feedback and motion is you have to be willing to take the time to tweak it to your liking. Now, I will say, as I say that straight out of the box, the default profiles that they have available are fantastic. But you can get far deeper into it. You can save it per aircraft. You can save it by the simulator, whatever's easiest for you and you find to be the most beneficial. But I do recommend, if you guys do decide to take this loop down into this rabbit hole, if you will, take the time. Take the time to learn what the settings do. You don't have to. Again, right out of the box is what you guys saw on takeoff. When we were all the way through takeoff, until you saw me reach for the mouse there like I'm doing right now and start playing around with things, I had not touched a single thing, and the experience was phenomenal. It was wonderful. The software is just very intuitive, and there's so many settings that, well, I'm a red button pusher. If you give me a red button in front of me and you don't tell me what it does, I'm going to push it. And that's sort of what I'm here doing right now, is I wanted to see what everything would do and see what the experience was like. So now that you guys have sort of gotten the gist, and look at that, look at the activity that's happening. You can see it both in the motion simulator and in the yoke itself with the force feedback. As I start increasing some of these settings, the intensity got really powerful. It got really, really powerful. So again, it goes back to what I've said now 3 times, and I promise this the last time. Take the time to tweak it the way you want. Really take the time to learn what they all do. All right, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at the software now. Okay, so now let's go ahead and dive into the software. The software is very, very simple. Now you guys are going to see right now it's disconnected, but the settings are going to be the same no matter which device that we're using. So here's where you're going to find yourself most often. Here's the basic settings where you can break down. Again, this is all going to be on a global scale, right? And you also have a very slick auto calibration. You literally push it. Now with the calibration, I do believe that you want to have the yoke handle removed, but make sure that you guys read through the documentation. You have expert settings, which again bring you through the different physics models of the aircraft. And then moving on into the dynamic feedback, there is a mode here, MCLS model. I have not tried that yet, so I'm not going to speak on that just yet today. What you're most likely going to be using is telemetry force feedback. This is where the telemetry that's being received is coming from the simulator. And from the home page here, you can see if we come down and find, oh, Jesus, right there. You can see that when you first launch the software, you'll be presented with this page. You'll want to click right here where it says configured. Yours will say not configured, and there will be an option that says, oh, there it is right there. I didn't think it was still there. Sorry. You'll just click config, and we can do it right now. It'll ask you for your basic directories, the game installation path, etc. Now remember, you may have your own community folder and things like that, but I just use the default stuff. Anyway. So moving on forward from there, the big kickers, again, coming back to the base. Like we talked about before, you have propeller, you have jet, and actually I do think this does have helicopters. Yes, it does, helicopters. But I cannot imagine using a yoke for helicopters, but I know some people do, and they have a great time, and they are successful with it. But this is where you can tweak it based on the category of aircraft that you wish, and this is where this starts to get really cool. Your axis travel, you can tune your axes all the way down or up based on your specific needs or desires. Your axis force, again, you can set the curvature on how you want the centering force to be on both the X and the Y axis. You guys can see I have them inverted. Again, I did that just playing around with things. I don't recommend doing that. That was goofy, but I wanted to see what would happen. And then finally, this was the cool one. So again, on here, you have different trim controls that you guys can set from the trim hats. And you have your force trim button if you need, which a force trim button, by the way, for those of you who may not understand what force trim is. In the case of force trim, I'm going to put the yoke in, or any force feedback, whether we're using flight stick on the AB9 or this one on the AB210. You're going to put the yoke where you feel the aircraft needs to be trimmed to, and you just simply push a button and it's going to lock that trim in place, so that way you don't have to keep pulling, to release the tension on your hands and arms. You have trim follow rate, which you can adjust basically if you're using the trim hat, how much trim is delivered based on each depression. And then finally on the axis settings, you can link the positive and negative as well as the X and Y axis if you choose, or you can trim them independently. So it's a really, really well thought out software, you guys. I cannot stress enough. I've been using the software for quite a while. For those of you who may be like myself and also have the AB9, which we're also going to be talking about as it's gone through a pretty significant change, but in a different genre. This is the same software that we used when we were using it for flight simulation. The one caveat that I will also tell you guys is you do not, if you are like myself and you have the AB9 and you get the 210, you do not want them at the moment. This is something that will be addressed later on, but you do not want them both plugged in at the same time, or the software may give you some trouble or have some problems. So you only want to have either the AB9 or the 210 plugged in at any given time. Okay, and it can be as simple as just unplugging the USB. You don't have to disconnect it, unpower it, whatever. Just remove the USB so that way the PC doesn't know that it's there. All right, so finally now let's talk about the last portion of this, the price. Okay, so now the big kahuna, the price. So, first off, the AY210 base comes in at $699, and the Moza MFY yoke handle itself comes in at $149 US, bringing this for a total of $850 US. Now, I'm going to give you guys a few things to think about just in case that you have some concerns about the price or other competitors. I have had the experience with other competitive products, and I will tell you that although the overall feel and use of them is very, very similar, they do not come with the features or the smaller form factors. So let me break down a few of the things that I want you to think about as you consider these, and also hopefully do your own research and look into the competitors. And I think you'll come back to the same conclusion that I am, that at the moment, Moza is taking the trophy here. First off, the competitors don't have the same feature list on the unit itself: landing gear, flaps, handle, light switches, etc. The flight handle itself, being removable and swappable, giving you the opportunity to use other products that I'm sure that are going to be coming down later in the future. The magnetic checklist plate for custom design, as well as the overall ergonomics and feel of the yoke itself. The yoke feels extremely solid. I know that hand and tactile feel is a really hard thing to relay over video, but I can promise you that I have one of the major competitors to it, which is more expensive than this unit is, larger than this unit is, and doesn't come with the features that this unit has. When it comes to the software and overall force feedback performance, I will say it's a pretty on par with the competitors. In that arena, they're pretty equal, which is why I think everything else coming back in together, the sleek design, the ergonomics of it, the overall features, the tactile feel, the buttons, the switches, the lights, etc., take Moza to the top at a reduced price point to its competition. So just something for you guys to think about. That's how I came to my personal overall conclusion that Moza takes the trophy, but I'll let you guys be the deciders of that as well. I hope you guys have found this video useful. To Moza, congratulations on another amazing release. You guys are really, truly taking the flight simulation community by storm, as I said in the beginning of this video, and I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with next. To my viewers, stand by for yet another product review from Moza that we're going to be talking about here in just a couple hours. You guys should be seeing that video, and then another one following that, as we had a product that already exists sort of take on a new role. So stick around.